Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for tonight. It's all about the new Mining Act in Indonesia. Indonesia has introduced a new Mining Act, and one of the critical aspects of it is that they've got a ban on the export of raw materials. So you actually have to process the material before they're exported. This modification or change in the Mining Act has been about 5 years in the making. However, I think it's caused a lot of issues with its current introduction, which was last month. So our speaker will be talking about these changes to the Indonesian mining regulations. He's a national, Indonesian national, who's currently in his last year of his PhD at Curtin University. Besides working as a metallurgist, the speaker has regularly written on natural resource management and regulations in the Indonesian newspapers. So please, would you put your hands together to welcome to the podium Alex Senaputra.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for everyone who is coming to my presentation. Chris asked me to finish it in 30 minutes, so I better start it now. So the topic for this evening is the latest updates about mining in Indonesia. Now, you guys know Indonesia as beef, boat, and Bali, right? And now maybe it's all about beef, boat, Bali, and ban. This is the mineral export ban that I just talked about. Now, let me just introduce a little bit about mining law and its history, the new mining law and the history between 2009 and 2014. So it was first introduced in January 2009, and with one of the most discussed issue is the domestic processing of the raw minerals. So you don't have to have a smelters or refineries there, but at least if you have a mine, you need to send it to other smelters or refineries in Indonesia, as you can see in the slides there. And 3 years after that, there is a Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources Regulation, number 7, year 2012, and it classifies 14 metallic ores that have to be processed prior to export. And I will let you know what it is all about. So this is the 14 metallic ores. It covers copper, gold, silver, tin, lead and zinc, chrome, molybdenum, PGM, platinum group metals, bauxite, iron sands, nickel, manganese, and stibnite. Basically, it's all the primary minerals that Indonesia have. But there is one take-home message for you: coal was and still safe. So if you are interested in developing coals, and it's still safe, you don't have to process it so far, And in mid of 2012, the Minister of Finance, they just published one regulation, so they just apply 20% of export tax to the raw ores that is exported. So the government give 5 years of window period between 2009 and 2014. Within that window period, you can still export ores, but in 2012, they apply this 20% of export tax. Now, in 2013, just a few months ago, the government confirmed that 2014 will be the deadline for the low ore exports. It's exactly falls on the 12th of January. And just on 2014, there is a government regulation confirmed that all companies with mining permits given before and after this law are required to pre-process that metallic ores. However, they gave a new purity level for the 14 metallic commodities. And let me have a look, and let me give you the new purity level. I don't have a chance to cover all of them, but copper, iron, manganese, lead, and zinc, they can be exported as concentrates. And now let's have a look on copper and nickel as examples. So before, in regulation number 7 year 2012, copper can only be exported as cathode. However, in the new regulation, it can be exported as concentrates. Sorry for the mess up there. I think it's because of different version of computers. And if we have a look on the case of nickel, you can export nickel as nickel matte, ferronickel, MHP, like what Ravensthorpe produce, or nickel sulfide. So, and when the government decreased the purity limits from copper cathode to copper concentrates, there is a catch on that. The catch is the higher tax paid for the concentrates. So it starts with 25% on 2014, and then it will go to 60% on 2016. So, you know, I mean, that's crazy, but by that time, the government wants you to have smelters or you don't have a business here. That's what the message there. And there is a second take-home message here. So banning raw ore export doesn't mean that you have to be, you know, producing final metal like 99%. However, I mean, I realize that building refineries or smelter in poor infrastructure country in Indonesia is not an easy task. So that's the second take-home message. Now, I mean, let's have a look how the ban changed the whole game in the global industry. I take an example of nickel. So this is the plot of price versus year. I take it from LME, London Metal Exchange. I know that there are a lot of different metal exchange like New York or Shanghai, but I just take one as example. In here, we saw that the price of nickel is in decreasing trend since 2011. And if we have a look on this, what happened with the stock and the year, I mean, we realize that the stock is in increasing trend since mid-2011. And that's because Indonesia is exporting around 40 to 60 million tons of ores, of nickel ores per year. They are pushing before this regulation happened. That's why it's keep going up like that. So now, the scenario is something like this. In theory, if Indonesia bans the raw export, the mineral raw export, then the world supply will decrease and the nickel price will increase. I mean, that is true if the supply from Indonesia is quite significant. If it's only like 1, 2, 3, 5%, then it's not going to change a lot. But let's have a look on the recent statistic published by the government. So in 2013, they just exported 52 million tons of nickel ore, raw nickel ore. And if we have a look on the characteristic of Indonesian nickel ore, between 1 until 1.7% of nickel, that's equal to 500 to 850 kilotons of nickel, or 20 to 45% of world consumption. So, I mean, with the ban, there will be no longer oversupply, and the price will increase. You know, analysts from financial institutions like Bloomberg, they understand that, and they put this prediction that the nickel price will increase from 14,000 per ton to 17,000 per ton in 2014. They just released it a few weeks ago. And, you know, I mean, when the prices increase, then building refineries in Indonesia it's a viable option, especially when the local miners are less experienced on that, and also they have very limited access to the funding, especially when you think that all the funding is booked overseas, because Indonesians have very limited foreign reserve. That's one of the problem. So this is the take-home message. I mean, export ban for foreign investor, it can be perceived as mixed opportunities here. Now, if you want to develop the mining and processing business in Indonesia, there are two most important aspects now. First is the divestment rules. It has been changed since the introduction of the new mining law. And the second of all is the certainty of law. Of course, I mean, as an investor, you really need that. Now, this is about the divestment and partnership with locals. So at least there are 3 regulations that saying they're limiting the foreign ownership here. I mean, if you are looking on the exploration permit, you can have until 75% for foreign investor. But if you are looking at the production permit, I mean mining and processing, you can only have 49%. And you know, initially you can have 100%, but after that you have to divest it gradually. That's what happened. And this is the divestment regulation. So the production year is the production since you have the smelter working. I mean, you know, after the construction period, the commissioning period. So between year 0 until year 5, you don't have to divest anything. After year 6, you have to divest 20%, 30%, until finally you have to divest 51% there. Now, where it can be divested, I mean, you can divest that to central government, you can divest that to province government, region government, state enterprise, or private national companies. So you cannot sell it to another foreign investor, for example. And there is also priority there. I mean, the central government gets the highest priority. So you have to offer your share to them first. If they refuse, and then you can offer it to province government or state enterprise, and finally you can offer it to private national companies. And you can offer it in different way. If you want to offer it to central government, you have to make offer to them. Otherwise, I mean, if you want to sell it to private national companies, you can open a tender for it. So it's quite complex. I mean, I understand it's quite complex. But it will be less complex if you have a joint venture with local partners, which is near 49% since the beginning. For example, if you set up 70-30, then you are safe for the first 7 to 8 years. That's the message there. So now, finding a local partner is very important, especially the credible and reliable ones. Yes, I mean, I heard a lot of unhappy ending stories between a JV, so between a foreign investor and also local companies, but there are also happy ending stories here. Let me give you an example. So there is Inalum there in Indonesia, in Sumatra. That's the only aluminum smelting in Southeast Asia. It works by hydropower. So it's very lucrative there, and it's been 30 years between Indonesia and Japan cooperation before Indonesian government finally took it in a decent price, in the price agreed by both parties. That's what I mean. And there is also Nusa Halmahera Minerals. It's 400 kilo ounces per annum gold mine in Molucas, and it's 400 kilo ounces. It's not small. I mean, it's like New Montana here. So it's owned 75% by Newcrest and 25% by its local partner Antam there. And because the mining permit was given before the law number 4, so they can have 75%. It's okay. I mean, it's just before that law. Oh, it's there is also another one here, and that's Indonesian Chemical Aluminium. So that's a joint venture between Indonesia and Japan, and it's in the construction period, also with Antam. So yeah, the success story is not that much in media because it doesn't sell. I mean, bad news is good news for me. Bad news is good news for media, but good news is no news for them. And particularly for Antam, I mean, that's the company that I mentioned before. I mean, by the Indonesian mining reports published by the Business Monitor Indonesia, it was said to receive some privilege from the government simply because it was a semi-state enterprise, so it can exploit the state reserve area. So yes, I mean, in reality, there are some potential local partners there. It's very important to know and find them. That's the message here. And now, I mean, most of you knows that Indonesia will have a national election next year. Sorry, not next year, this year, 2014. There will be a national election. And you know that the current president, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, he has been serving for 2 terms. And by constitution, he cannot run for the 3rd time. So he will be changed by someone new, simply because the constitution didn't allow that. And if you look at the presidential system in Indonesia, there will be presidents and a lot of different ministers. There will be also non-ministry body like police department or something like that, but they are still in the same level of ministry. And now for mining relevant laws, I mean, this is the most influential people there. So of course there is a president, also there is a Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, MOF, Minister of Finance, Minister of Industry, and also Minister of Trade. And beyond them, there will be another important person, head of ICB. What is ICB? ICB is Investment Coordinating Board. In 2011, they just published this regulation. So there is a 10-year tax holiday for the pioneering industry in the base metal processing, with minimum capital expenditure of $100 million US dollar. But the problem is the term of pioneer is still ambiguous, and we don't know, I mean, what is pioneer? Because, for example, we have 1 smelter already and 1 copper smelter already, and if we have another one, it will be pioneer or no? We never know. I mean, or it will, if that is built in different island, it will be pioneer or no? Again, we never know. So but there will be the most important people here. So this is the sixth take-home message: the upcoming national election will be the key to the certainty of law, and this will be the people deciding the fate of Indonesian mining industries. So this is the summary from the take-home message. That coal is safe so far, and you know, when I say that domestic processing, it doesn't mean that you have to produce final metal, 99% of metal. And export ban can be perceived as opportunities for foreign investors as well. And divestment it's really complex, so it's better to have a joint venture since the beginning to reduce the risk. Yeah, and there are also potential and local partners, and you know, and the most important thing is to wait what's gonna happen in the national election this year. That's all. I mean, this is my own views, and it doesn't relate with any institution, but I would like to say thanks to Parker Center's Curtin University CSIRO, my supervisor, Meriwa, Sci-Tech, and Chris Davis for this opportunity. And everyone who wants this presentation, you can just send me email. Thank you very much.
Great presentation, Alex. What's the truth behind the exemptions that I'm hearing about in Indonesia, and how permanent are those exemptions, and are they just for the Indonesian companies or the joint ventures?
The exemption of export, you mean?
I'm hearing there's a lot of exemptions getting passed through to certain companies with the right political connections.
I don't see any exemptions for the export at the moment. But maybe there are some exemptions in terms of we are running at different tax. That's what I heard. If you are a foreign investor, your company will be like this percent or that percentage. But for the export ban, I haven't heard or seen any exception for that.
I've got a question, Alex. Do you anticipate that the elections will happen quite smoothly, or given what's been happening in Thailand, whether there might be issues? Or it's too early to tell?
That it will be any problem, because we have been running at least 4 elections before this, and at that time the condition was worse than what we have at the moment. So it will be smooth, but we never know who will be the key, who will be the national leader.
Oh, just as a comment, I agree exactly with what you were just saying. I've just come back from Jakarta on Friday, and I've had meetings with various producers or exporters out of Indonesia, and they've had their licenses cut, and so they're left trying to fill quite substantial amounts of product into various markets, and they're having to try and find other ways of doing it. So we're talking up to 7,000 tonne of nickel that would normally have been produced through laterite exports. But for myself, because we're looking at producing products into the coal mining industry, I'm very, very interested and very happy to hear that that maybe there could be something that's around coal. Was there any possibility that they will change the laws on coal?
What I heard in coal industry is there will be another regulation, so the coal production will be limited. It will be limited to 400 million tons this year. That's what I heard from the internal source. Before, I mean, last year we exported around 440 million, so they are cutting 10% from that. And it will be interesting also saying that the royalty will be changed, the royalty system will be changed, but of course they want to hear the input from industry first. So they will, I mean, the government will work together with the industry to determine what's the best royalty for all of them, you know. And that's what's gonna happen with coal, but it will be limited to 400 million tons, and it will be interesting to see who gets the biggest portion of that, and what's the play behind that.
If I could just ask another question, the elections seem to have been going longer than the American elections at the moment. When does this all complete? When's it finish? When's we getting
with the national election, it will start with legislative on April. After we know what's happening with the legislative level, I mean, we can go into the presidential level on July, and the result will be published around August, I guess, the end of August. But the new government will be formally announced to public on October. So that's, but you know who will be the president on August. And normally he will choose the minister a month or 2 months after that. That's what gonna happen. Oh yeah, I have to add a little thing about this. There is a very recent statement by the Minister of Industry, I guess. So he said that if you combine mining and processing, and then you can get some relaxation from this point. I mean, so you don't have to divest in 10 years, maybe you can divest in 15 years if you combine mining and processing. But if you have only smelter, then you have to follow this regulation. But it's not formalized yet, so I can only say that I'm hinting it. And you know, I mean, the minister talk about it, but they haven't been writing it officially.
Now the rule is that it has to go to a national smelter. True? You don't have to smelt it yourself. If you're a mining company,
yes.
you don't have to build a smelter. You just have
No,
to
no. You can just sell to any smelter in Indonesia. It doesn't have to be national smelter. I mean, it can be smelter owned by foreigners. As long as in Indonesia, then that's okay. Because that's the multiplying effect that they are looking for. I mean, when you are hiring Indonesian laborers and stuff.
Is this mainly directed at the nickel and bauxite, laterite ores, or is it more general? And because they're the ones that have grown most dramatically recently, as I understand it.
In Indonesia, there is only nickel laterite. There is no nickel sulfide.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, as opposed to gold and copper, is the direction more those two than the others?
Oh, you mean with the increase in price and? Yeah. Oh, I haven't looked at the copper one, because the copper is still, there are a lot of debates with the copper. We have two biggest copper production in Indonesia. One is Newmont and another one is Freeport, and their production is really huge. But the problem is the mining permits given to them is long before this law. So we don't know whether we can apply this law to them or no, whether the transition will be smooth or no. So I cannot really speculate on that. But on nickel, on bauxite, that's done. That's banned. So it will change the whole game.
Because they're the ones that have grown dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years, if I understand it. Is that right?
Yes.
What do you think might happen to tin production under this new legislation?
Oh yeah, I just wrote about that in Indonesian newspaper. It's actually very interesting. So what happened is since year 2000, I mean, there are a lot of illegal tin miners, and the production from illegal tin miners can be the same from legal tin miners. And it's very hard to fight against them because they are using communities leaving them. So the communities is digging out and selling the concentrates to someone. And because of that, they apply the tin bourse Indonesia. So everything has to go to the tin market before it can be sold overseas. So at the moment, I mean, looking at what has been traded there, they are trading around 11,000 tons of tin per month in that tin market. So it's going okay. But the problem is in that tin market, they only have 5 products to be traded. But in reality, I mean, tin has around 200 of derivatives. So what's happening with that derivative outside that 5 products? That's the biggest issue at the moment.
You say all this depends on the election of the president. Who are the candidates and what are their views going forward? Because that will obviously impact on people's investment decisions.
That's a very good question, actually. In Indonesia government system, only party can put the candidates of the presidents. And only party who has 20% of vote can put the candidates there. So we need to wait until the national election with the legislative level. Until we know who has that 20%, then we will know who is the president's candidate.
Alex, how much hardship, if there is this total ban on the mining and export of untreated nickel laterites, how much hardship is going to be sustained by communities before that the pushback builds up from the people and exports start, however legally or illegally?
Okay. If I need to scale the hardship between 0 until 10, I put 4. Why I put 4? Let me go back to what happened in the year 2009. 2009, Indonesia export around 3.5 million ton of bauxite. And in 2010, they export 20 million ton of bauxite. And at that time, in 2009, I mean, people are still having job, although they are not working in mining industry. And now, economy is growing at the rate of 5.8 to 6.3% per year. So, maybe they cannot work in mining industry, but they can work in other industry, although other industry is not paying as good as mining industry. That's why people are complaining, because now they get less because they are not working in a big mining industry. That's what happened. But I believe, I mean, there are some jobs for them. I mean, it's not, we're not gonna really be suffering. That's what I believe. So 4 out of 10.
I've heard that if the election were held today, that the mayor of Jakarta would win. That he's a very popular fellow. He's a television personality and stuff like that. The mayor of Jakarta? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard that he would win the election if it were held today. But he leans quite hard left of center. He's left wing, right? Assume that he wins the election. What do you see happening?
What I see from him is he's putting the right people into the right position. So if he wins, it will be on the hand of Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources. And we don't know who will be on that position. He will never put a political position into a position of minister. He is not the people like that. So he will put professional people in the position of Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources. But I don't know who will be.
So, in other words, what you just said, the way I heard it, is that we've got about 12 months of indecision and unknowing, and no production will be made for the next 12 months. And doesn't look very good for Indonesia, does it?
Yeah, that doesn't look really good. But actually, this export ban has been announced since 2009. So actually, government has been given companies around 5 years, 5-year window period to build refineries or smelter. But I know at that time, the price is really low, so you cannot really build that. So yeah, I mean, but the government has been saying that, so they cannot change mind. I mean, so that's what they do.